What comes to mind when you hear the words private equity? For some folks, I think the first thing that comes to mind is that private equity is evil. Well, what about the term entrepreneurism? I know for many people, private equity and entrepreneurism don't really go together, but you might be surprised to learn that for me, there really is a strong link. What I mean by that is I never thought of myself as an entrepreneur. I never had an idea for a better mousetrap or a killer app. And for those reasons, I, again, didn't think of myself as an entrepreneur. However, through private equity, through buying businesses and growing those businesses, I've come to learn that I am a bit more entrepreneurial than I gave myself credit for. It was just a different flavor of entrepreneurism. And that flavor of entrepreneurism is entrepreneurship through acquisition, or ETA. The downside, though, is that the overwhelming trend in private equity is not one that is rewarding entrepreneurs, it's one that is rewarding bigger and bigger firms. Whenever I think about all the quote-unquote evils of private equity, so often is it is because or coming from actions of the biggest private equity players. These guys aren't the ones that are trying to establish relationships with the individual peoples that are working in the company. These aren't the ones that actually care about helping the community be stronger by having strong company and a great place to be employed. These large firms are the ones that are becoming more and more corporate, just like the huge technology behemoths that seem to control our lives to some degree. And they're using financial engineering. They're using these models where you strip the assets of the company and then flip it for another financial buyer to come in and further degrade the company. At its heart, my view is that private equity should really be a place where entrepreneurship thrives. That is why I like private equity. That is my vision for Four Pillars, is to be a firm that champions entrepreneurship. Whenever we think about a company, whenever we look at a company, we are not at all thinking about where we can strip out costs, where we can cut employees, where we can curtail investment. On the flip side, it's really about, okay, if we're going to double this company in terms of revenues and employees over the next 3 to 5 years, what are we going to need to do in order to make that happen? We're going to need more equipment. We might need more facility space. We're definitely going to need more employees. Those things are great. They help the economy, they help the community, and they help the individual people at those companies by creating more responsibilities for given roles, or even entirely new roles that allow people to try new types of careers and whatnot. It's really sad, though, because the current trends in private equity is that more and more money is going to these larger firms, where the smaller firms like Four Pillars are really missing out, even though they're the ones that are out there trying to grow these smaller organizations. According to the Wall Street Journal, the top 6 private markets managers, Apollo, Blackstone, Ares Management, KKR, Carlyle, and Brookfield Asset Management, were responsible for nearly 60% of the industry's total fundraising in the first 3 quarters of 2024, according to company filings and data compiled by Preqin. The figure is up from about 20% in 2019 and includes areas such as credit and infrastructure. Stats like this make me think of the Pareto principle, or essentially the 80-20 rule. And my take, at least as it relates to asset managers, is that there's too much concentration in the largest 6 managers. Similar to what we experience in the tech world with Meta and Google and all these others. Whenever that much concentration exists, I can't think that the users of these companies are the ones that benefit. Not at all. It has to be the owners of the firm, and I get it. We live in a capitalist society, and that's the name of the game. Again, though, this is not the flavor of private equity that I would champion. So while I will never go so far as to say private equity is evil, I would say that the corporatization of private equity, a theme that I've talked about before and I'll probably continue talking about for a long time as long as it continues to go down this path, is really bad, not just for private equity as a whole, but I really think that that's a big part of where the harm comes from private equity-backed companies. I know that my perspective is a bit biased because I work in the industry, but what do you think? Now, I know there are some folks out there that will just say private equity in any form is evil, and you're certainly entitled to your opinion. But to the folks that have a more middle-of-the-road view, do you think that there's the potential that it's these larger behemoths that are coloring a lot of folks' view on private equity? Or am I drinking my own Kool-Aid and even the folks that are on the middle of the road think 90% of private equity is in fact evil? Let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that. And even if you don't agree with my thoughts, but you want to hear more interesting or controversial takes on private equity, just so you can disagree with what I have to say, please like or subscribe, and you'll definitely not be disappointed because I'll definitely have some more thoughts to share on the topic. Thanks for watching.